Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's Monday, February 23rd, 2026.
Good to be here.
Yeah, and we are coming to you, as always, from a Jack Diggs production right here in Rutherford County, Tennessee.
Right here at home.
Exactly. And, we are officially entering the final week of our month-long series for Black History Month.
Which has just flown by.
It really has. I mean, if you've been listening for the last 3 weeks, you know the theme we've been working with. We've been laser focused on honoring Black excellence within our local community. We've looked at the entrepreneurs who are changing the economic landscape. We've looked at the educators shaping young minds. We've looked at the artists, basically the people actively building the future.
Right. We've been looking at those visible pillars of the community.
Yeah.
You know, the success stories that generally make the front page or the gala program.
Yeah, exactly. But today feels it feels different.
It's a pivot.
Yeah, a major pivot. The texture of this conversation is going to be a little grittier.
Yep.
We are shifting gears because we aren't just looking at accolades or, achievements in the traditional sense.
No, we're wading into the waters of memory.
At truth.
And honestly, this is where that whole concept of excellence gets really tested. Because it's one thing to celebrate success, right? It's another thing entirely to preserve the actual history that makes that success possible.
Right.
Today isn't just an information download for you all listening. It's about the weight of the past and who chooses to carry it.
I completely agree. So let's unpack this. The source material for this deep dive comes directly from an article and a script written by Jason Bennett,
The founder of Jack Diggs Productions.
Right. And let me tell you, when I first read through this, it didn't feel like a standard history lesson.
Not at all.
It felt like a journey.
It really is a journey. And it's one that centers on 3 specific elements that, at first glance, I mean, they might not seem connected at all.
Right.
First, you have a woman named Jennifer Edwards, who is a contemporary community leader. Second, you have a cemetery that I would bet a significant portion of our listeners drive past every single day without even noticing.
Benevolent cemetery.
Exactly. Benevolent cemetery. And third, you have the global legacy of the Buffalo Soldiers.
Buffalo Soldiers.
Right.
Right here in Rutherford County.
Right here. And the thread that ties all of these elements together is this concept of benevolent remembrance.
Benevolent remembrance. I like that phrase.
It's powerful. It's about the physical act of reclaiming names that have, nearly slipped into total silence.
So let's dive into the catalyst for this whole story, because it starts in the most mundane way possible.
Very mundane.
We aren't talking about some grand archaeological expedition funded by a university.
Oh.
We're talking about a Saturday morning and a Facebook post.
Which is often how these things start in the modern era, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just a simple inquiry tossed out into the digital void.
Exactly. So Jason Bennett is doing his weekend research. He's prepping for this exact series, the one we are wrapping up right now. And he's just looking for the groundwork, trying to confirm some facts to make sure the history is right. So he puts up a post on Facebook asking a very specific question.
Right. He asks if anyone has information about Buffalo Soldiers buried in Rutherford County.
And let's pause on the intent there.
Yeah, that's more...
He wasn't looking for drama. He wasn't looking for a heart-wrenching story to exploit for a podcast.
No, he was looking for data.
Right.
It was pure research. He wanted to know names, ranks, dates.
Just doing the homework.
Oh.
But then he gets a response.
Yeah.
And this is where the story pivots.
It really does.
Because the person who responds isn't just a casual observer. Her name is Jennifer Edwards.
Right.
And from everything we have in the notes here, Jennifer is not the type of person who just scrolls past a question she thinks she can help with.
No, she seems to be someone who actively engages. But what's really fascinating here is the gap in her own knowledge.
Oh, yeah. This is crucial.
Right. She responds to the post, but she admits she didn't know about Benevolent Cemetery. He didn't know there were Buffalo Soldiers buried there.
Which is surprising, right? Because as we'll get into, this is a woman who is deeply connected to her community.
It is surprising, but it also speaks to the sheer level of erasure we're talking about here. If someone as engaged as Jennifer Edwards doesn't know, who does?
Right.
But here is the key takeaway from the sources. She didn't know the location, but she knew the legacy.
Yes.
She knew what a Buffalo Soldier was. And that knowledge, that deep connection to the identity of those men, that was the spark.
So let's establish who Jennifer Edwards is for you listening. Because to understand why this cemetery visit matters, you have to understand the woman walking through those gates.
Absolutely.
The source material describes her as someone who is living Black excellence in real time.
And if you look at her profile, it's clear why. She's deeply embedded in the civic fabric of Rutherford County.
Yeah.
First and foremost, she's a mother raising two sons, and the note specifically mentioned them.
Javon and Eli.
Right. Javon is a college-educated athlete, and Eli is a brilliant student aiming for MIT.
MIT. That's no small thing.
Exactly. So she is actively raising the next generation of excellence.
That's a very specific kind of household culture, isn't it? Aiming for MIT. That speaks to intense discipline.
It speaks to incredibly high standards. But she's not just working inside her own home. She ran for county commission.
Which is a huge detail.
Huge.
Running for county commission isn't glamorous.
No, it's not.
It means you are willing to step into the arena of land use, zoning, funding, the absolute mechanics of how a community operates.
Right.
It shows a real willingness to fight for resources and attention.
It shows she understands how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yeah.
She understands that if you want actual change, you have to be in the room where the budget is written.
And then there's the Devin Bond case. This part of the source material really stuck out to me.
Yeah, that was heavy.
For those of you who might not remember, Devin Bond was a missing child case right here in our area.
A truly tragic case. Heartbreaking for the entire community.
And Jennifer played a crucial role there. The sources say she flat out refused to let him be forgotten.
Right.
She organized search efforts. She coordinated people. She was literally out there in the woods doing the physical work.
And that tells you everything you need to know about her character.
Mm-hmm.
When there is a crisis, when someone is missing, she doesn't sit back and wait for permission to help.
No.
She steps in. And that is actually how she met Jason Bennett in the first place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they met through service and crisis management, not just casual networking at some event.
Yeah.
She's someone who shows up when things are hard.
Okay, so you have this woman who is intensely action-oriented, deeply caring, community-minded. But there is another layer to her backstory that makes this specific deep dive so potent today.
The roots.
Yes, her roots.
This is the connection to the bigger picture I mentioned earlier. Jennifer was born in Germany to a military family, but her formative years, starting in second grade, were spent at Fort Huachuca in Sierra Vista, Arizona.
Fort Huachuca. So, for those of us who aren't military history buffs, why is that specific name so important?
Fort Huachuca is essentially hallowed ground. It is the historic home of the 9th and 10th Cavalry.
Wow.
Those are the original Buffalo Soldiers.
So she didn't just read about them in a textbook.
Not at all. She grew up breathing that air. In Sierra Vista, the Buffalo Soldier legacy is literally everywhere.
Yeah.
There are monuments, there are museums, there is immense local pride. It's a celebrated, highly visible part of the culture there.
Right.
It wasn't hidden history for her. It was her daily reality growing up.
Okay, so imagine that contrast for a second. You grow up in a place where these black soldiers are treated as absolute titans of history.
Heroes.
Right. Their names are on the buildings, you see their statues. And then you move, you grow up, and you find out that right here, in your current home of Murfreesboro, there are men from that exact same lineage.
And you didn't even know they were there.
You had no idea.
That is the friction point right there. That is the massive disconnect that I think drove her reaction to Jason's post.
Yeah.
She intimately knows the global legacy, but she just discovered the local neglect. It creates this jarring dissonance. Like, how can they be celebrated heroes there, but completely invisible here?
It's a valid question. So back to the timeline of the story.
Right.
Jason gives her the directions to Benevolent Cemetery.
Right.
And Jennifer, true to form, she doesn't wait for the weekend.
No.
She doesn't put it on her calendar for someday down the road.
Immediate action.
Immediate action. She gets in her car. She stops and buys 3 dozen yellow roses.
Which is such a beautiful, specific touch.
It really is.
Yellow is often associated with the cavalry, with Remembrance. That wasn't a random choice. It was highly intentional.
So she buys the roses, and she drives straight to the cemetery. And this is where the story shifts from just being a neat research project to a real confrontation with reality.
It becomes incredibly physical.
It does. She gets there, and I want to be really clear about what she finds, because the source material is vivid here.
Very vivid.
She calls Jason from the site, and she is shaken.
Yeah.
She is genuinely upset.
She's seeing what Jason describes in his script as the wound.
The wound. Sunken graves. Missing markers. Broken stones.
Depressions in the earth.
Right. Depressions in the earth where you know a body is, but there is no name.
It's a visceral experience. You have to understand, for someone like Jennifer who reveres this specific history, seeing it in that state, it feels like a violation.
Yeah, I
It
kind
feels like total abandonment. And her reaction was honest. It was a very human response to the systemic neglect that has plagued Black cemeteries all across this country for decades.
It's the shock of the new for her. She's seeing it with fresh eyes.
Exactly. And she calls Jason. Now, Jason knows this place. He has a history with it.
He does, and this is really important context from our sources.
Mm-hmm.
Jason didn't just find this place on a map while Googling.
No.
He used to work with the homeless population in that area.
Right.
For years, many people use the overgrown sections of that cemetery as an actual home.
Because it was so dense.
Right. And Jason has always viewed it as sacred ground, even when it was covered in brush and debris. He knew the dignity was there, even if it was totally obscured.
So he understands the deep layers of that land.
Yeah.
He knows it's a place of rest for the dead, but he also knows it was a place of refuge for the living who had nowhere else to go.
Yeah. So Jason drives out to meet her. And I love this specific note in the source material. It says he drives out there not to correct her, but to stand with her.
That is a profound distinction.
It really is.
He didn't go out there to mansplain the history to her.
Right.
He didn't tell her she was wrong to be upset. He didn't say, oh, don't worry, people are working on it, calm down.
No.
He went there to witness her grief.
To just be present.
Exactly.
So they are standing there, the producer and the community leader, and they start to walk the grounds together. And this is where the healing begins to overtake the wound.
It's the shift from observation to stewardship. They are walking, and Jennifer starts doing something. She doesn't make a big announcement about it.
Oh.
She don't look around for a camera crew. She just starts picking up trash.
Candy wrappers, chip bags, just wind-blown debris.
And she's filling her coat pockets. The source explicitly says she filled both of her pockets before she left.
That right there, that is the definition of stewardship. It's totally instinctive.
Yeah.
She saw something that did not belong on sacred ground, and she removed it. She didn't ask Jason for help. She didn't complain about it. She just did it.
Think about the physicality of that act.
Mm-hmm.
Bending down,
Mm.
touching someone else's trash,
Yeah.
putting it inside your own coat.
It's an act of deep ownership. She
Yeah.
is essentially saying, this is mine to care for now.
And as they're walking, and she's doing this cleaning, her perspective starts to shift because she realizes something important.
Right.
This cemetery isn't abandoned.
And this is a really critical correction to the narrative that people might have.
Yeah.
It looks rough in places, absolutely. There are sunken graves, yes, but it is not abandoned. It is currently being restored.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because this ties directly into that concept of Black self-determination.
It does. We have to look at why Benevolent Cemetery exists in the first place.
Right.
It was founded in 1897. Why? Because Black families were completely excluded from white cemeteries.
Segregation didn't end at death.
It absolutely did not. So they had to build their own.
But they had to. Just like they had to build their own funeral homes, their own doctor's offices, their own barbershops, their own churches.
Yes.
These were all parallel institutions born out of strict necessity.
The ethos being, we did this, we built this, and we will continue to do this.
Exactly. And that exact ethos is still alive in Benevolent Cemetery right now. It was created by the community back then, and today it is being restored by that same community.
It's an unbroken chain of ownership and care.
So Jennifer's out there picking up trash, but she's also learning that she's joining a team that's already on the field.
Precisely. She isn't the first one to arrive. She's just the newest reinforcement.
Let's take a deeper look at the history of this place and the men who drew Jennifer there in the first place.
Good idea.
We mentioned the cemetery was founded in 1897,
Right, by the Colored Benevolent Society Lodge number 11.
which is such a great name, Benevolent Society.
Yeah.
It implies care. It implies looking out for one another.
It implies a safety net. You have to remember, in a time when there was no Social Security, there was no government assistance for Black folks, these societies were the absolute lifeblood of the community.
They did everything.
They did. They buried the dead. They cared for the sick. They were essentially the insurance policy and the social club all wrapped into one organization.
And the sources note that between 1897 and 2003, somewhere between 750 and 850 people were buried there.
That is a massive amount of history in one single plot of land.
It's huge.
That's over 800 individual stories.
And among those 800 plus people, we specifically know of 3 Buffalo soldiers,
Right.
3 veterans of the Spanish-American War.
Henry Williams, John Cheers, and Adam Delbridge.
Let's talk about them. What do we actually know about their resting places today?
Well, this really illustrates the challenge of the site right now. Henry Williams, his stone still stands.
Okay.
It's weathered, it's chipped, but it is physically there. You can read his name. You can walk up and touch the stone. It's a tangible link back to 1898.
But the others?
John Cheers, his grave is currently completely unmarked.
Wow.
And Adam Delbridge, who the notes say was a husband and a father of 12 children, his grave is also unmarked.
That hits hard. A father of 12,
Mhm.
a veteran, and there is no marker.
It does, and this raises a really uncomfortable but necessary paradox that we have to talk about.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We have to look at what these men actually represented. They were Buffalo soldiers. They put on the uniform of the United States military. They literally fought for a country
that didn't fight for them?
a country that actively legislated against them. They served under a flag that did not serve them back, and when they came home, if they were lucky enough to come home, they didn't get a grand parade.
No.
They returned to segregation. They returned to exclusion. They returned to a society that looked at them and said, you can fight for us, you can bleed for us, but you cannot be buried next to us.
That is such a heavy reality to sit with, to risk your life for a concept of freedom that you are blatantly denied in your own hometown.
It's the ultimate irony, and yet look what they did. They built lives here anyway.
They did. That's the resilience we're talking about.
Despite the absolute exclusion, they built families, they built these lodges, they built this very cemetery. They claimed a space for themselves and for their dignity when no one else would give it to them.
So when we talk about restoring this cemetery, we aren't just talking about mowing the grass.
Not at all.
We are actively acknowledging that resilience.
We are engaging in what I like to call forensic remembrance.
Oh, I like that term, forensic remembrance. What does that actually look like in practice for the people doing it?
It's the hard, often invisible work. It's not just raking leaves on a Saturday, it's cross-referencing burial logs that might be 100 years old and barely legible.
Right.
It's looking at old census entries to see who lived where and when. It's physically matching a broken fragment of a stone to a random depression in the earth and hoping it fits.
It's a giant puzzle.
It's quite literally an archaeology of the African-American past. You are trying to connect a lost name to a specific piece of ground,
Yeah.
and that is incredibly difficult when the original markers were made of wood and rotted away decades ago, or when the limestone crumbles to dust, or when the official records were just lost or never kept in the first place.
The outline mentions something called the restoration ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as we said, Jennifer realized she wasn't alone out there. Who else is actively doing this work?
It's a whole coalition. The source material specifically mentions Allen Chapel AME Church, and this part is incredible to me. They bought the cemetery for $10. $10. It was a strategic move to save it from being lost entirely. And they currently own and maintain it. They stepped up to be the legal stewards of the land.
That's amazing.
Then you have the African American Heritage Society of Rutherford County. They have been out there restoring it quietly for years, doing the mowing, clearing that heavy, heavy underbrush that Jason mentioned, used to hide the homeless encampments.
Right.
And First Baptist Church is also noted in the sources as being part of this care network.
So you have these established institutions, the churches, the historical societies, they're doing the heavy lifting, the long-term planning.
Exactly.
And then you have individuals like Jennifer who come in and add their immediate passionate energy to it.
It takes both. You absolutely need the institutional memory and the legal ownership to protect the space, but you also need the fresh eyes and the raw energy of individual community members to keep the momentum going.
Speaking of Jennifer's energy, let's talk about what she did after she left the cemetery that day. Because she didn't just drive home, feel sad for a while, and turn on the TV.
No, she took it public.
She made a Facebook post. And the notes really emphasized the tone of this post.
Yeah.
It wasn't performative activism. It wasn't a look at me, I'm a hero kind of post.
It was brutally truthful. She acknowledged the unmarked graves. She acknowledged the overgrowth. She didn't sugarcoat the actual physical condition of the cemetery at all.
Right?
But then she quickly pivoted to responsibility. She stated very clearly that the work of fixing this belongs to everyone.
She issued an invitation to her community. She explicitly asked her friends and the city to join the effort.
And that is a crucial leadership moment right there. She didn't just log on to complain about a problem she found. She invited people to be part of the actual solution.
Yeah.
She said, essentially, I'm going to do this work. You should come do it with me.
Which brings us all the way back to the main theme of this entire series, Black excellence.
Right.
We usually think of excellence as being the best, being the fastest, being the smartest in the room.
The valedictorian,
Yeah.
CEO, the star athlete on TV.
Exactly. But this specific story forces us to refine that definition a bit. How do we define Black excellence in the context of Benevolent Cemetery?
I think excellence here is defined simply as preservation.
Preservation.
It is the stubborn refusal to let history fade away. It is the simple act of showing up when no one is watching and there are no cameras.
It's the stewardship we talked about.
It is. It's the stewardship of memory. You know, Jennifer didn't take a selfie smiling next to a sunken grave.
No.
She didn't try to center herself in the narrative at all. She centered the soldiers. She centered the ongoing work. She went there. She learned. She honored them. And she bore witness to their reality. That is excellence.
It's an excellence of character, not just an excellence of capability.
Precisely. And I think it's a powerful reminder that excellence isn't always loud. It isn't always a speech or an award. Sometimes excellence is incredibly quiet.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just picking up a discarded candy wrapper from the unmarked grave of a man who died 100 years ago.
That is a really powerful image to hold on to. The quiet, solitary dignity of picking up trash in a cemetery. It really reminds me of that old quote about how you treat the least of these, or in this specific case, how you treat those who can literally no longer thank you for what you're doing.
And how you treat those who the rest of the world has actively tried to forget.
So as we look at the arc of this story, from the initial Facebook post Jason made, to the yellow roses, to the trash collection, what is the core takeaway for us?
For me, it's about the Jennifels of the community. We talk a lot about institutions, and as we noted, they are vital.
They are.
But institutions are ultimately made of people. Memory only survives because specific individuals decide it's going to survive.
It survives because someone decides to actually get in their car and drive there.
Right. It survives because someone decides to spend their own money to buy the flowers. It survives because someone decides to organize the Saturday morning cleanup crew. If Jennifer hadn't responded to that post, if she hadn't driven out there that day, those 3 dozen roses wouldn't be resting there. That trash would still be blowing across the ground.
And maybe fewer people would even know that Adam Delbridge lies there at all.
Exactly. The wound of the cemetery, that visceral first impression of neglect she had, that was very real.
Yeah.
But the healing, the community restoration, the long-term involvement of the AME Church, the Heritage Society, and now Jennifer adding her voice, that is the lasting truth of the place.
The neglect is the past, but the restoration is the present.
Exactly.
It really makes you think about the sheer amount of invisible labor that is required to keep history alive.
So much labor.
We all walk past these historical markers, or we drive past these old spaces, and we just assume someone else is taking care of it. We assume the city or the local government is handling the upkeep.
But in the specific case of African American cemeteries, historically, the government completely stepped away. The city stepped away. It has always fallen directly onto the shoulders of the community to do the actual work. And that work is hard, it is physical, and it is often very expensive.
So keeping all of that in mind, here is a final provocative thought for you listening tonight. We all say we care about history, right?
Sure, everyone says that.
We all say we honor the veterans. But do you actually know where they are?
That is the real question.
Do you know the names of the historical cemeteries in your own neighborhood? Do you know who is buried in that overgrown patch of woods behind your subdivision?
And more importantly, are you willing to get your own pockets dirty?
Right.
Are you willing to bend down and pick up the trash? Because that is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
It is very easy to post a picture of a flag on Memorial Day. It is much, much harder to go out and clear heavy brush in the freezing cold in February.
Benevolent Remembrance. That's the title Jason gave this script, and I think we've seen exactly what that truly means today. It's not passive remembering, it's benevolent action.
It's active love.
It really is. Well, we have reached the end of this deep dive, but as I mentioned at the top, it is just the beginning of the final week of our series. We have a few more incredible stories to tell before the month is out.
And if they're anything like this one, we are in for a very meaningful week.
Absolutely. I want to say a special thank you to Jason Bennett for sharing this story and all of his meticulous research with us, and of course to Jennifer Edwards for showing all of us what real stewardship looks like in practice.
And a huge thank you to the Allen Chapel AME Church and the African American Heritage Society for doing the hard work out there for decades.
Indeed. This has been The Deep Dive, a Jack Diggs production. Thank you so much for listening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Rutherford County.